It's like, even my friends, right? So if my friends see something on TikTok or Instagram, or if it's like about my girlfriend, whatever, do not send it to me. I will not see it. And I actually took a lot of advice from Rogan's system. Rogan's, none of his friends can send him anything. I don't see that stuff because it's not useful information. And the truth is, and again, I spoke to Simon Sinek about this, you don't want to start aiming at ghosts. You don't want to start exerting energy on trying to counteract public perception, which isn't necessarily based on even their own perception of reality anyway. You don't want, it's not a useful sort of way to allocate your chips. I talked about those 24 chips, you have 16 left when you wake up. It's a really inefficient use of your time. It doesn't bring you forward in any way. So it all comes down to systems and processes. You need these principles in your life which take you right back to your caveman days when there was 20 people and your survival led to the survival of the other 19 people. So in my hardest moments when I'm being criticized or scrutinized or whatever, that's what it comes down to. It's like, keep my circle super small, focus on what I'm doing.
You know, the Rogan's solution was heavy kettlebell workouts, 5 minutes of cold therapy, and 3 grams of magic mushrooms per day. Oh, really? Yeah.
I heard him say that when the Spotify, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
And that's his system. He's built up like a social network as well to guard him, you know, news and articles and feedback and stuff. And he's kind of retracted from like social media as we know it. I think he was ever a huge part of it. And I understand why.
What do people not realize about the reality of the sort of scrutiny that comes along with big platforms, especially mainstream platforms?
I'd probably draw more on other people's experiences than my own, from like interviewing people that have dealt with like real fame, because I don't consider myself to be really famous. I think it's maybe just maybe there's you probably experience this as well, but there's like an ongoing, always on paranoia, which I think is just this numbing paranoia in the background. And also this realization, which is actually something I learned from that one day, by the way, where I was with Prince William. We're not friends. He doesn't know who I am. But when I spent that day with him and I posted, I've just been with Prince William, we did this business initiative, every single message I received was, amazing, how is he? Amazing, is he nice? Amazing, is he nice? Amazing, was he sociable? It's this, you're meeting everyone they know. And that's a lot of pressure to never have a bad day in public. And it actually gives me huge empathy for someone like Justin Bieber, who is actually famous, who goes out in public on his worst days and tries to pick up a can of milk, and there's 74 paparazzi following him down the street and thousands of fans literally outside his front door in New York City. And he's literally going, please, can you not come to my home? I watched the video of him going, please, can you not come to my home, please? And I go, oh man, it's no way to live your life, is it?
That ambient anxiety, this sort of sense that you're being followed or that something could go wrong.
Yeah.
I get you with that.
I'm nowhere near some of these people that live that, like a Drake or even a Rogan or a Justin Bieber. I can't imagine.
Can I teach you a lesson that's from Ben Francis that didn't happen on the podcast? So we went for Nando's in Manchester at Gymshark Lift LA weekend, and he'd got his EA to text me and say where it was going to be and when, or maybe he'd text me or whatever. And I walk in and he's sat down reading something on his phone or watching or whatever. And I think his EA and his EA's assistant or something has sat on a different table. He was there. I sat down and we got talking. For the people who don't know, Ben Francis is the CEO of Gymshark, and his net worth is 3 times what Drake is worth. Triple Drake. And then I thought, what would the experience have been like if I tried to come to this Nando's with Drake? And Drake wouldn't have got within 2 miles of this. He would have been mobbed. He would have been swamped. It would have been chaos. There would have been, you can even do this thing. There's like a law, right? Where if a normal person, if like a super famous person turns up in a very crowded place, that they can be like inciting violence vicariously through fame or some bullshit. And it made me start to think about the price that people pay for the wealth that they have, right? Ben Francis has managed to accumulate an awful lot of wealth, and the felt price that he has to pay is, at the very least, 3 times less than Drake, right? Because he doesn't have to have security with him. He has no security. EA is like 5'6", 100 pounds, right?
What's the cost, though, in Ben's case?
Of not being as famous?
Of the game he's chosen to play, which is business versus
I suppose that, you know, he's not going to get the public accolade as much. He won't get asked to as many cool things because people aren't going to be constantly looking for him. He's not like the hot girl on your arm that you can trot out at some event. Very rarely going to be sat front seat at a Lakers game and it pan and go, and here's the CEO of Gymshark, Ben Francis.
For me, that's like perks he's not going to get, but the cost he's going to encounter
Okay.
is 7 days a week. He's got thousands of people who are relying on him to pay their mortgages.
I mean, how many people's Drake got relying on him?
Honestly, on the business side of things, probably directly not that many.
Okay.
Ben's the CEO, which means that when the markets go down and when they go public, which I'm sure they'll go public, when that stock price dips, as you've seen from Matt Moulding at the Hut Group, Matt Moulding said to me, again, not a Drake, right? So he's the CEO of the Hut Group. He said on stage, actually, at the an event we did at Soho Farmhouse, he says, sometimes at night, I just lie on that cold kitchen floor at 3 a.m. because it's just cold and it's cooling me down. Like the chaos of what's going on in that company means that he's lying on the kitchen floor because it's just the coldest surface he can feel to cool his body. That level of like, the hardest times of my life were running business. They were like dealing with journalists. It was like the pressure of knowing payroll is tomorrow and looking at the bank balance and knowing there's nothing in there, and then looking up in the office and seeing 200 people in our HQ that are joyous and celebrating because they think it's payday tomorrow. And me knowing in my head that I have 24 hours to persuade Natalie at our bank to put money in our account or else they're not getting paid. The pressure of that is much worse than any article or getting mobbed at Nando's. And that's what Ben will be encountering. He does it with such grace, as a lot of CEOs do. But you've heard about, Elon Musk talking about the pain of trying to save Tesla and SpaceX, being out in the street on Christmas Eve, like crying. He says it's the deepest pain he's ever felt. Then he got that phone call that someone was going to lend him 20 million to save Tesla and SpaceX. It's a different level of pain, a different game they're playing. So all things in life have a cost. This is my conclusion. Drake's thing has a cost, which is privacy and all of those issues. Ben's thing has a cost as well, which is, even thinking about it gives me goosebumps because I know the feeling of like the angst of a business, a ship.
Yeah.
They're two different costs. And it goes back to what you said is with the Mark Manson quote, which cost are you willing to incur? It's so interesting. It's a prison you've built around yourself that you don't know is there. And I reflect on that video. Have you ever seen that video of the ant and the pen?
No.
They get an ant on a piece of paper, plain A4 piece of paper. And the guy on YouTube, it's like got millions of views on YouTube, just with a biro, draws a circle around the ant. And the ant runs to the edge of the circle and believes it's trapped. And it will not cross that line. It will not cross that line. Looking down on it from a bird's eye view, you go, oh no, it's just a figment of its imagination. They do the same with a spider. They get a piece of paper, there's a on it, they draw a circle around it with a biro. It will not cross that line. As the guy's drawing the circle smaller and smaller, he accidentally draws it so close to the spider that the spider steps over the biro, and then it can never, ever in its life be trapped by the biro again. And you watch it just run the page, and he's trying to trap it again, and it can never, because it realizes that's just a wall it's built in its mind. And I reflect on that always in life and go, there was this time I was in Boston and I was running on a tread machine, and I always do 10 kilometers on this tread machine. And when I do 10 kilometers, I get this physiological signal that I'm tired, like my muscles break down. I landed in Boston. I've got a talk later that day. The tread machine doesn't have the kilometer dial on it, so I can't see how fast I'm running. So I think, okay, I'll do it the other way around. I'll wait for the signal in my body telling me I'm tired, and then I'll get off. I run and I run and I run and I run. I run and I run and I run. I'm not getting tired. I keep running. The time I'm going to have to get off at this treadmill point. I hit the button, 21 kilometers. And I was perplexed, absolutely perplexed. Every time I run 10 kilometers, I feel knackered. I ran 22, I couldn't see the thing, and it was just a limiting belief, a wall I'd built, and I told myself that that was a limit. And we have drawn circles around ourselves, and those circles are determining how far we push, how we aim, the things we decide to do, but they are just figments of our imagination.
Have you seen, there was a study, very famous study, where they put rats into water and they let them tread water to see how long they would do it until they just gave up. So first iteration of the study, they put rats in, and I think they last around about 30 minutes, something like that, not long. Second iteration of the study, new rats, obviously, unfortunately. Rats go in for 28 minutes, then they pull them out, they dry them off, and they let them calm down. And then they put them back in, and they tread water for like 12 hours. Right?
Really?
Because their belief is, I'm going to be safe. And that's learned helplessness, right? You'll have heard about the dog where it pushes the button to stop itself from being electrocuted on the floor. It's the same sort of thing. But yeah, I do wonder, where are the lines that are drawn around us, that we've drawn around ourselves? Moving to America, my ambition has changed so much. I don't have a massive amount of ambition intrinsically, or I didn't. And then I start to hang around with guys like Bill Perkins, right? Or Rogan, or Mark Normand, or people that are really like moving very, very quickly. And it's like through fucking osmosis, man. you just can't not start to have bigger goals and dreams. And it's scary. It's scary when you realize, especially for me, because I know what it's like to ambition. I not that it doesn't come from me, but for some reason I hadn't fire that went underneath it. And then after a little while, you realize, oh, hang on a second, like this is really fucking potent. Like,
and
this
it's compounding for you.
Yeah.
On that point about the limitations we both have that we probably don't realize are there, the best place to always search, I think, is in the labels we've given ourselves. Like, what do you label yourself as when you introduce yourself?
Podcaster.
Yeah. And if you think about labeling theory, what we said earlier about grades or telling certain things, that is building a wall around you in your own mind that you're a podcaster. And this happens in all of our lives. The last thing we achieved becomes the identity that we embody, and it traps us in a cage. So I'm super careful all the time, especially when I left my last marketing company, to not define myself with a particular label, because I would become the label. I would act in service of the label and move in that direction. You are not a podcaster. In fact, like, podcasting wasn't even a thing when you were born. So how can that be who you are? You are someone that is curious. And this is what I mean by like resisting the labels. You are curious. You like intellectual conversations. You like self-improvement and forward motion. And if those are your labels, think about all the things you can apply that to. Business and creativity, and you're doing shows soon, right? And I think that's a free, and you look at why people get midlife crises when they hit, 40 years old, when they look at, how the hell did I get here? I'm working in the city. Well, you embodied a label and lived that label for 15 years. And it wasn't even something you particularly enjoyed. You were just good at it. That resisting of labels, I think, is so important for long-term happiness.